Well, that is the list of the senators, the nominated senators who have been expelled by the Jubilee Party. Will definitely be getting their reactions and give you details of what transpires in the coming days. In other news, a section of legislators are faulting the BBI Constitution Amendment Bill, terming it as ill-timed and misguided. The leaders, who held a meeting with the Deputy President William Ruto at his current residence, argue the country should instead prioritize reviving the economy following the pandemic and addressing social economic challenges as opposed to amending the Constitution. Catherine Achieng'a with the details.
Deputy President William Ruto hosted over 130 legislators at his official current residence in Nairobi. The meeting was aimed at sieving through amendments to the Constitution of Kenya Amendment Bill by the BBI team, currently at the County Assembly. And after a closed-door meeting that lasted for nearly 6 hours, they would emerge. It is here that they poked holes into the ongoing push for a referendum. Led by Elgeyo Marakwet Senator Kipchumba Murkomen, Garissa Town Member of Parliament Aden Duale, and Gatundu South MP Moses Kuria, the leaders maintained that the ongoing push for constitutional change is ill-timed.
We reiterate our earlier position that constitutional changes are not a priority for the nation. As a group, we remain committed and focused on the people's needs, and these include the revival of the economy, addressing the health of the people of Kenya vis-a-vis the COVID-19 epidemic, the education sector, including our children going back to school, the agriculture and other social challenges.
For a long time, the country has yearned for an issue-based political discourse. The Hustler Nation's agenda and platform rest on such a pedestal. This is why we have consistently endeavored to shift national discourse from the retrogressive and divisive politics of tribe to a new conversation that is inclusive and focused on a bottom-up empowerment approach.
The leaders also emphasizing the need for Kenyans to be enlightened on the proposed changes to the Constitution should the country take the referendum route.
Should the country be forced into a referendum, hypothetically I'm saying, then citizens should be provided with information on what is being changed, for what purpose, in whose benefit, and in accordance with the Bill of Rights and the constitutional provisions.
Their sentiments coming ahead of the resumption of business at both the National Assembly and the Senate, with the leaders vowing to push for the operationalization of bills that would address the challenges facing farmers in the country.
We will be pushing for the operationalization of the Tea Act that was passed last year in December. We will be looking at ensuring that the coffee bill, the proposed coffee bill, sugar bill, crops amendment bill that in particular looks at cashew nuts, coconut and bixa.
For Channel 1 News, I'm Catherine Achieng'a.
And now the road to a referendum has suffered a temporary blow after the High Court stopped the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission from facilitating and subjecting the country to a referendum pending the outcome of consolidated court cases on the BBI bill. Now the ruling comes as trouble is brewing at the Law Society of Kenya following the suspension of LSK chairperson Nelson Havi. Havi has since termed his suspension as invalid.
In a ruling by a 5-judge bench comprising of Professor Joel Ngugi, Judge Odunga, Jairus Nga, Janet Mulo and Enoch Mwita, the High Court has temporarily stopped the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission from facilitating and subjecting the country to a referendum. The order is pending the hearing and determination of consolidated petitions querying the legality and procedures of the Constitutional Amendment Bill 2020, sponsored by the Building Bridges Initiative. The judges in making the order declined to interfere with the legislative process in the county assemblies in national parliament, adding that the court has the power to intervene even at the tail end of the process if need be. At the same time, the court ruled its decision was aimed at preserving and preventing petitions from being rendered nugatory. Meanwhile, the Law Society of Kenya President Nelson Havi has been suspended from office pending the ordinary general meeting to be held in March, where his defense will be heard in person or through an advocate of his choice, and thereafter a decision made by the general meeting through a vote of all members attending the meeting, both physically and virtually. Harvey has ever dismissed his suspension, saying the 8 suspended council members do not have the power to suspend him, saying their efforts are aimed at concealing theft of the society's money. For Channel 1 News, I'm Sarafina Robbie.
And also, Education Cabinet Secretary Professor George Magoha has called for calm among students as they prepare for next month's national examinations. Magoha says the government has taken cognizance of the lengthy closure of schools, dismissing claims that the ministry has set up students for failure. The Education CS said the examinations shall consider the 10-week duration candidates spent in second and third terms.
Education Cabinet Secretary Professor George Magoha has moved to allay fears of possible poor performance of candidates in next month's national examinations. Concerns had been raised over the level of preparedness among students, with a section of stakeholders alleging that students are far from ready to sit KCSE and KCPE.
The examination classes countrywide, that in my considered opinion, they are doing very well. And they do not have to, absolutely, they do not have to work under tension, because the examination is only 1 month away. In fact, the primary school one will start on the 19th of next month. And the children should be at peace. The children should be at peace because the government is aware that they were out of school for 9 months.
Magoha said the government is committed to a proper conduct of the national examinations in line with existing systems for quality assurance.
I can guarantee you that you are not going to fail, because those tests that were done immediately you opened school, and somebody is writing 12 weeks later when you have already transformed and charging. And if I may tell you for free, some of the standard 8 children are even more charged than the other classes, the other higher classes.
The government says it has stepped up efforts to instill discipline in students and is actively engaging stakeholders in modalities of addressing the vice to avoid another wave of unrest.
If we allow our systems to work, let nobody come and plead. Because people are saying, oh, the parents are going to, of course they are going to pay. Because you should tell your child why he should never think of banning a school, even if you are annoyed like what.
The Education Cabinet Secretary spoke in Mwiki when he led the distribution of face masks as the government step up efforts to curb the spread of COVID-19 in schools. Over 10 million face masks will be distributed to schools across the country to protect learners against the novel coronavirus. Beatrice Gatonyanga-Tich, Channel 1 News.
Now, a family of a woman who died after she was thrown out of a moving matatu along the Thika superhighway are demanding justice. Their kin is said to have died after she was violently thrown out of a member's sacco vehicle Saturday over a disagreement over the bus fare. Elsewhere, a Migori family is seeking clarity over the death of their kin. The 21-year-old is said to have collapsed while on duty in a local supermarket, only to be taken to hospital hours later.
The tragic end of their sister has left not just pain but unanswered questions to this family. Judy Wanjiko, the 26-year-old who worked at a local bank, was allegedly thrown out of a moving member sacco vehicle on Saturday last week near Juja police station. The vehicle operators are reported to have charged Wanjiko 400 shillings from Kenyatta Road to Mwea, where she was heading, a price that is supposedly higher than what is charged normally.
That yesterday in the evening, she was taken to Thika level 5 hospital while complaining of a headache. But on arrival, she was pronounced dead.
An argument ensued with the conductor, resulting in the tragic turn of events. The family is accusing the police of laxity in the matter. Police, however, say that the vehicle, whose registration number is KCZ 729C, has already been detained at Juja police station in Kiambu County. Detectives say they are in pursuit of the driver, Stanley Masharia, and his conductor, who are still at large. Wanjiko's body is at Thika Level 5 Hospital morgue. In Migori, the family of Livia Achieng'a, a supermarket attendant at Zamzam Supermarket, is seeking answers following the death of their kin. According to the deceased brother, Catherine Achieng'a, his sister collapsed while on duty, only to be rushed to the hospital 4 hours later.
We established that my loving sister, who was working in Zamzam Supermarket, collapsed in the supermarket, and the body was taken to the mortuary. So they didn't even report the case to the police.
Zamzam Supermarket manager Ramur said they took time in giving first aid before rushing her to the hospital. Dr. Onyango Matthews Wasonga, who first handled Achieng'a, said she was brought in by colleagues at around 1:10 p.m. and passed on only 5 minutes later.
On arrival, we could not do much. She came gasping, severely pale, low. So we tried resuscitating with the sisters around, but she could not pick. At around 1:15, we certified that she was dead.
Finally, residents of Shambani area of Isiolo have given authorities a 2-week ultimatum to conclude investigations on the circumstances that led to the death of a 12-year-old mentally challenged girl. The girl's lifeless body was dumped near a bridge. According to area residents, the minor may have been defiled before she was strangled to death.
Kuuliza majirani wakasema kuanzia saa 8 ndio waliona mara ya mwisho. Kuanzia saa hiyo yaona mtoto. Kuamkia tena Ijumaa nikaenda kusurura kutafuta mtoto mpaka nikaenda kuchukua hata OB kwa polisi. Sasa leo tena ilikuwa niende kwa watu wa maredio, lakini uzuri tu nimepitia tu hapa hivi na mzee yangu. Mzee kuniambia ndio hivi hatu, mimi niliangukia hapa hivi.
Caroline Kamar reporting for Channel 1 News.
Now, the Legal Advice Center, known as Kituo cha Sheria, is warning the country is staring at a constitutional crisis if the acting Chief Justice Philomena Mwilu is ordered to step aside. The lobby group has moved to court under a certificate of urgency, seeking interpretation on the way forward should the courts order her out of office pending the hearing and determination of a case in which she's accused of graft.
Ahead of a hearing of a case by Isaiah Mongela in a Meru court seeking for the acting Chief Justice Philomena Mwilu to step aside, the Legal Advice Center, otherwise known as Kituo cha Sheria, are now seeking directions from the court on the way forward if she is to be ordered out of office. In their petition, they're raising concerns of a possible crisis in the judiciary. Meanwhile, 2 persons, Eric Ndungu Mwangi and Robert Njoya, have been charged with selling counterfeit Uni-Gold HIV test kits to unsuspecting customers, which is a contravention of the law. They're accused of selling the counterfeits on diverse dates between the 24th of September 2019 and 21st December 2020. Other charges include exporting 400 packets of the counterfeits through Jomo Kenyatta Airport to Guyana, South Africa, valued at 800,000 shillings. They were granted a bond of 200,000 shillings or a cash bill of 100,000 shillings. The case is set for mention on the 22nd of February. Finally, the court has issued a warrant of arrest for David Kahi, who is the 4th accused person among 9 others who are to face charges of making a false document dated 24th of January 2018 for the supply of goods between the State of Department of Defense and the WAL Developers and Construction Limited. Other charges they are to face include forgery and obtaining money by false pretense. The court has directed the Immigration Office to flag David Kai's passport to prevent him from flying out of the country. The case is set for mention on the 8th of March. For Channel 1 News, I'm Sarafina Robi.
Now, Kenya's COVID-19 positivity rate has risen to 6.4% after holding at below 5% for several weeks. The latest data shows that 125 people have tested positive for COVID-19 out of 1,953 samples that were tested. The numbers of fatalities also remain on an upward trajectory, with 7 more people succumbing to the virus.
For the past several weeks, Kenya seemed to be slowly coming out of the woods, with the COVID-19 positivity rates holding steady at below 5%. The low infection rate, one of the requirements by the World Health Organization to declare a curve flat. However, the week started on a negative note, with a 6.4% positivity rate being recorded. This after 125 people tested positive for COVID-19 from 1,953 samples tested. This pushing the total of confirmed cases to 101,944. The fatality rate also on the rise, with 7 more people succumbing, pushing the total to 1,786. The latest figures come amid heightened political activities and alleged complacency among Kenyans in efforts to stem the spread of the virus.
Na mnajua ya kwamba corona bado ipo na imeua watu wengi sana katika dunia, Marekani, huko Europe na sehemu zingine, na imeleta hasara kubwa. Hata sisi huko mbuga ya Masai Mara, kwa hiyo muda yote hakuna wageni kwa sababu ya ugonjwa huu ya corona.
In the figures released by the Ministry of Health on Monday, 112 people have recovered from the disease, driving the total number of recoveries to 84,473. 384 patients are, however, still admitted in various hospitals, and another 1,333 are currently on home care. Out of the patients in hospital, 39 are in the intensive care unit. Nancy Okware, Channel 1 News.
While you are watching Channel 1 News Hour, it's time for us to take a short break, but we will be back in just a bit.
Mpya vitu mzuri zaidi. Leo tunakupa Oppo A93
na ni rahisi zaidi. Kumbuka unaenda kwenye paybill number, unaekelea paybill number yetu ni 4032353. Kisha unaenda kwenye account, ekelea code ni Oppo, alafu unique number yako. Kisha ni 20 bob peke yake.
Na hivyo ndivyo utakuwa umekelea bid kwenye quickbid.co.ke. Kumbuka bidhaa bora kwenye bei ya nini? Chini kwa chini.
Chini kwa chini.
Jiunga na Quickbid ni rahisi. Enda kwenye M-Pesa, bonyeza paybill, kisha weka business number 4032353. Kwenye account, weka kodi ya bidhaa unayotaka na bid yako ya chini zaidi. Kwa mfano TV 16. Kisha weka shilingi 20 tu kama idadi yako. Weka bid yako pia kwenye www.quickbid.co.ke. Kumbuka, bid ya chini zaidi ya kipekee ndio ununua. Quickbid, bidhaa bora kwa bei ya chini.
Next on. It was a good performance. I didn't know you were a good actress.
I had to make an effort for Juliana.
I didn't realize that he was the same person who had saved me from the accident. I work for Mr. Manuel, your son's father-in-law, but I didn't know I was working for Max.
Well, Mom, we're sisters after all. And in spite of her leaving because of you, she and I will always be sisters. And we love each other.
Tonight on KBC Channel 1.
We have a packed show lined up for you this week.
Be sure to tune in at 10 p.m, baby.
I think for me, the art in music should speak to the audience, yeah? To the audience heart, to the audience mind, whatsoever, yeah?
Malaria ni ugonjwa hatari sana unaoua watu wengi hapa Kenya. Japo kuko na korona, hatari ya malaria bado iko. Mtoto huyu alikuwa na joto jingi, kutetemeka, kuumwa na viungo na uchovu. Alikimbizwa hospitali ya umma ambako sheria za COVID-19 huzingatiwa na ni salama kwa shughuli ya upimaji. Vipimo vilionyesha kuwa ana malaria na papo hapo daktari akampa dawa za malaria na kumshauri azimalize, na ili kujikinga wawe wakilala ndani ya neti iliyotibiwa. Malaria husambazwa na mbu. Walio hatarini ni watoto wa chini ya miaka 5 na akina mama wajawazito. Kupimwa na kutibiwa ni bure katika hospitali zote za umma. Usisahau adui malaria. Zero malaria huanza na mimi. Chukua jukumu leo. Komesha malaria. Ujumbe huu umeletwa kwenu na Wizara ya Afya.
Welcome back. If you're joining us, you're watching Channel 1 News Hour. Let's now focus on other stories, and we cross over to a recruitment exercise that began today, a countrywide recruitment exercise for the Kenya Defence Forces, targeting to enroll at least 4,400 Kenyans into the military. Now, Vice Chair of the Defence Forces, Lieutenant General Levi Mgalu, has warned recruits against being duped to pay money to be enrolled. The exercise will take place in 327 recruitment centers across the counties.
The nationwide KDF recruitment process kicked off officially in Nairobi at the Kenya Defence Force headquarters despite the morning showers.
I now declare the Kenya Defence Forces 2021 nationwide recruitment exercise officially launched.
The Vice Chief of the Defence Forces, Lieutenant General Levi Mgalu, presiding over the event, say they're seeking to recruit officers in 6 categories.
They include General Service Officers, General Service Officer Cadets, that is GSO, General Service Officer Cadets, holders of undergraduate degrees, Specialist Officer Cadets, General Duties recruits, tradesmen and women, and finally Defence Forces constables.
At the same time, he pointed out that in line with the 2010 Constitution, the process has been devolved across all 47 counties to bring services closer to the people.
The Kenya Defence Forces has mapped out 327 recruitment centers across all the 47 counties, with presence in 327 gazetted sub-counties. In so doing, KDF is aligning itself to the Constitution of Kenya 2010.
At the same time, he warned those seeking to join the military to be on the lookout for conmen posing as officers in a bid to rob them of their hard-earned money with false promises of joining the forces.
Should anyone give a bribe with the aim of securing a place during this recruitment exercise, they will have themselves to blame. Our wish is to conduct an open, free, and fair recruitment exercise.
The exercise has been going on smoothly in other counties as well, with youth turning up with hopes of making the cut.
The exercise started well. It is free, fair, transparent, and open to all interested candidates who meet the KDF qualifications requirements for recruitment.
Turnout ilikuwa ni sawa, tumepata vijana karibu 200 ambapo baada ya kuchuja tumebakishwa na vijana 70.
Potential recruits have been urged to attend the exercise, which will be carried out in line with MOH guidelines on COVID-19. KDF is seeking to address shortfalls in the wake of increasing demand for specialized skills consistent with the technological advancement of the force. Yusuf Farah, Channel 1 News.
And elsewhere, the 5th session of the 12th Parliament is set to begin tomorrow following the lapse of a 2-month recess. Both the National Assembly and the Senate will sit in the afternoon and will first constitute their respective House business committees. The five comes even as the focus shifts to county assemblies, which are expected to debate and forward the resolutions on the Constitution of Kenya Amendment Bill to Parliament. Here now is Parliament's entry.
Members of Parliament will resume sitting tomorrow for the 5th session of the 12th Parliament, a session that comes with a full tray of constitutional review-based debate that might be critical in shaping 2022 general elections. It is during this session that both the National Assembly and the Senate will deal with the Constitution of Kenya Amendment Bill 2020 that is currently with the county assemblies, as well as 12 other legislative proposals sponsored by the proponents of the BBI. Tomorrow, however, both houses will have a single business of approving members of the respective House Business Committee. Once established, the House Business Committees will retreat to planned business for the House. Kevin Washira, Channel 1 News.
Now, the National Assembly may lose powers to vet and approve or reject the nominee for secretary to the cabinet. The Constitution of Kenya Amendment Bill, sponsored by the Building Bridges Initiative, proposes that the president appoints the secretary to the cabinet without the approval of Parliament. Kevin Washira with details of the proposed amendments to Article 154 of the Constitution.
Clause 32 of the Constitution of Kenya Amendment Bill 2020 seeks to amend Article 154 of the Constitution to remove the requirement for vetting of the secretary to the cabinet by the National Assembly. If approved, the president shall bypass Parliament and directly make the appointment. According to the Constitution, the main duties of the Secretary to the Cabinet include being responsible and subject to the directions of the Cabinet for arranging the business and keeping minutes for the Cabinet, as well as convey the decision of the Cabinet to the appropriate persons or authorities. Kevin Washira, Channel 1 News.
And the government has refuted claims that a life was lost during the recent demolitions carried out by the Kenya Railways Corporation in efforts to repossess grabbed land at the Kibos village in Kisumu County. Meanwhile, a section of Muslim leaders from Mombasa County want the government to intervene and compensate persons whose houses were demolished. This and more in the county news briefs.
Speaking in Muhoroni Deputy County Commissioner Benedict Musyoki stated that no family had reported any death of their kin, warning local leaders against inciting the residents. This development comes after a section of local leaders claimed that a child had died during the demolitions carried out last Friday.
Kuna mtoto ambaye aliweza kuaga. Kutoka wakati ule wa Ijumaa mpaka wa leo, hakuna yeyote ameweza kuenda kwa ofisi ya Assistant Chief kuweza kupatiana hiyo report. Hakuna pia wale wameweza kuenda police station kupatiana hiyo report. Na pia hakuna wale walienda kwa hospitali pia kupatiana report, kwa sababu mwili ukiaga unapelekwa mochari na pia mpaka uweze kurecord kwa hiyo cheti.
Meanwhile, a section of Muslim leaders from Mombasa County have urged the government to intervene and put in place measures that will ensure all those whose houses were demolished are compensated, as well as oversee the rebuilding of the mosque that was also demolished.
Basi serikali itoe ardhi kubwa zaidi ya ile yenye title. Ijengee wale Waislamu nyumba, ijenge msikiti kama ule mkubwa zaidi ya ule, na Waislamu apawe fidia.
Elsewhere, a section of youth leaders hailing from Mount Kenya region have formed a caucus to lobby support for Deputy President William Ruto's 2022 bid.
Our support to the Deputy President William Samoei Ruto is intact.
And Maendeleo Chapchip senatorial candidate Mutua Katuku has urged Machakos voters to elect a competent candidate and not be swayed by sympathy or political party affiliation, adding that it was paramount for Machakos residents to pick a candidate who is capable of executing their mandate in the Senate.
Tunataka senator ambaye atahudumia watu wa Wiper, watu wa Jubilee, watu wa maendeleo chap.
While Waitethi, a member of County Assembly, Macharia Taki, on Monday presented himself to detectives at the Directorate of Criminal Investigations to shed more light on allegations involving Kiambu County Governor James Nyoro. The MCA has in the recent past made allegations accusing the county chief of graft.
Ambao inasema more than 720 million 100 zilitumika kufanya public participation. Kwa hiyo public participation, mimi kama MCA hakuna pesa hata moja si upatia watu huko. Inasemekana walipatio kila mtu 300,000, lakini kuongea ukweli hakuna pesa. Kuna function ilikuwa hapa ya Jamhuri ambao tunasema tulitumia more than 2 million, ambapo mimi kwa wakati wa Jamhuri kwa sababu ya ile lockdown ilikuwa hatukufanya hiyo function. So hizo ndizo mambo ambazo naitwa hapa niweze kuelezea.
Elsewhere, property of unknown value was razed down following an inferno at St. Augustine Boys School in Mwingi Central Constituency, Kitui County. The fire destroyed a dormitory housing 50 Form 1 students. Police are investigating the cause of the fire.
The cause of the fire is not yet known because the investigation is still underway. We don't want to preempt and probably accuse the community of any shortcoming, because until at a time when the results will be out, that's when we shall have an authentic report of the same.
Finally, residents of Kitutu Chache South Sub-County are protesting a plan to set up a dam site in the area without being involved in the planning as per requirement of public participation. The residents say they fear their health is in jeopardy, citing contamination of safe drinking water points.
Sasa tunaomba viongozi wetu, sio kwa ubaya, tunauliza kwa uzuri. Tunataka mkuje tukae pamoja, viongozi wetu wale tulichagua, alafu mtueleze ni nini kinaletwa Nyatieko. Upande wa takataka tumekataa kabisa.
Reporting for Channel 1 News, I'm Jackie Wambiru.
Now, the leader of the coup in Myanmar has made his first TV address seeking to justify the action amid mass protests. Min Aung Hlaing said November's election, won in a landslide by the party of Aung San Suu Kyi, had been unfair. The military has begun to impose restrictions in some areas, including curfews and limits to gatherings.
Youth protests were held on Monday for a third straight day, along with a nationwide strike to oppose the coup. The general speech also drew angry opposition with images on social media showing people banging pots and pans in protest in front of a television screen. The military seized power last week after claiming without evidence that the election was fraudulent. Elsewhere, 18 people have died and 200 others are missing after a piece of Himalayan glacier fell into a river and triggered a huge flood in northern India. Those missing are believed to be workers from 2 hydropower plants in the area. Hundreds of troops and paramilitaries and military helicopters have been sent to the region to help with rescue efforts. The cause of the glacier burst is not clear yet. Finally, South Africa has put its roll-out of the Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine on hold after a study showed disappointing results against its new COVID-19 variant. The study also found the vaccine offer minimal protection to mild and moderate cases. Scientists say the variant accounts for 90% of the new cases in South Africa. The country has recorded more than 1.4 million coronavirus cases and more than 46,000 deaths since the pandemic began. It has received 1 million doses of the Oxford AstraZeneca jab that was due to start vaccinating people in the coming days.
Very well, it's time for Channel 1 News Hour to take another short break. But when we come back, we will be looking at what is happening in the world of business. So stay tuned for that after this short break.
Tonight on KBC Channel 1.
We have a packed show lined up for you this week.
Be sure to tune in at 10 p.m., baby.
I think for me, the art in music should speak to the audience, yeah, to the audience heart, to the audience mind, whatsoever, yeah.
On the next episode of Ashoka.
I'm here to remind you, do not forget my face, because I'm the last person you're going to see before your death. I can kill you even today if I want. I could have targeted the spear at you. But I will not kill you so easily, Kichak. Firstly, I'm going to defeat you.
You may have led me to Ashok, but you have still betrayed my trust, Kaurwaki. Tomorrow, during the celebration of Ashok's death,
ulichukulia kwa mfano ndani ya matatu.
Yaani mtu mzima na miaka zake, hizo miaka zote mtu ajui kujua kuandika note, note tu peke yake. Kusoma kweli utasaidia.
Nini nakusumbua na nini?
Nauliza, ni bwana?
Don't you dare insult me, okay?
Mama Angel,
don't you dare.
Haya, kwani ni vita? Nini wewe? Yaani wataka kumpiga? Huwezi mpige, mpige nini?
Welcome back. Let's now focus on the day's business, and we begin with not so good news, especially for farmers, where now the Ministry of Agriculture is saying that the locust invasion is likely to get worse in the coming weeks, worsening food security in the country. Now, a report from the Food and Agriculture Organization says millions of people in 8 counties are the most affected. Agriculture Cabinet Secretary Peter Munya says the government will ramp up efforts to tame the breeding and spread of the invasive pests ahead of the long rains which are expected in March.
Since December 2019, the Horn of Africa has been battling billions of locusts that have decimated vegetation in 5 countries in the region. Reports indicate that 203 swarms have settled in Kenya, while 121 have so far been contained.
We were able to largely clear locusts out of Kenya fields by August 2020. We are all witnesses of that.
However, more swarms are expected to invade and settle in the country during the month of February and March, according to projections by the Food and Agricultural Organization.
We can't tell you until we clear the locusts that are here. That's the end of the problem, because it's a migratory locusts are migratory pests. They move with speed from one place to another. They don't respect administrative or country boundaries.
Cases of crop damage have already been reported in parts of Kitui, Machakos, Laikipia, Tharaka Nithi, Baringo, Kajiado, and Elgeyo Marakwet County.
We have already sprayed 80% of the swarms that are already here. Of course, we don't want to underestimate the situation, because the rains are almost here, and therefore we believe we will be able to contain the situation.
Agriculture Cabinet Secretary Peter Munya says it is critical that the breeding and spread of the invasive pest is tamed ahead of the rains, as they provide a conducive environment for the locusts to thrive and hampers efficacy of aerial spraying.
To have the aircrafts really flying and spraying, the ground control, as the minister said, the training, it really requires resources. So we will continue appealing, and we are sure that we will have a good response.
Going forward, stakeholders have called for more inclusive approaches in tackling the menace amid concerns of a looming food shortage in the country and capacity building.
We have inadequate equipment when it comes to ground control.
where sometimes we have, of course, the KDF and the NYS, I didn't want to commend them. Like in Meru, they have really been able to come on board. But you realize that the swamps are occupying large areas, but maybe you only get about 2 or 3 of these equipment, the motorized ones, and they are really not able to do much. So we end up just controlling 30%, and the swamp still moves on.
So far, 1,555 personnel have been trained, and a majority from the National Youth Service, with more personnel set to be enlisted in the fight against the dangerous pest. Regina Manyara reporting for Channel 1 Business.
Now, tea farmers have written a protest letter to the Acting Chief Justice Philomena Mwilu saying the judiciary is frustrating reforms in the troubled subsector. The more than 600,000 small-scale farmers say various injunctions issued by various judges in the country have delayed the implementation of the Tea Act 2020. In the last 6 months, 6 constitutional petitions have been filed in various courts stopping the implementation of the Tea Act 2020.
The government is locked in a do-or-die fight with the Kenya Tea Development Authority over plans to institute reforms in the multi-billion shilling sector. The flexing of muscles has been ongoing since late last year, when President Uhuru Kenyatta directed the Ministry of Agriculture to carry out extensive reforms in the tea sector after years of uproar caused by small-scale tea farmers. Since then, the government and Kenya Tea Development Authority, which represents 54 small-scale tea factories, are locked in a vicious supremacy legal tussle. KTDA is accusing the government of trying to disrupt the operations of factories owned by small-scale tea farmers in the country. Today, over 600,000 small-scale tea farmers drawn from 12 tea-growing counties have written to Acting Chief Justice Philomena Mwilu, citing 6 cases which they claim are frustrating efforts to fix loopholes in the tea subsector. The cases include ex parte and interlocutory orders issued by various courts in the country stopping the implementation of the Tea Act of 2020. The farmers, through their lawyers, have cited a petition number 022 of 2021 involving East African Tea Traders Association versus the Ministry of Agriculture, Livestock, Fisheries and Cooperatives that have suspended the implementation of various sections of the Tea Act of 2020, which they claim were done before orders were served on them. The tea farmers want the Chief Justice to constitute a bench that will relook into the pending cases in court and make final orders. O'Brien Kiman for Business, News Hour.
Now, President Uhuru Kenyatta has hailed the contribution of digital technologies to Kenya's transformation, saying ICT is helping the country create employment opportunities for its youth and enhance delivery of public services. On the African continent, the president observed that digital technologies have enabled both governments and the private sector to continue operating optimally despite the disruptions caused by the COVID-19 pandemic. The head of state spoke today at State House, Nairobi, during the 2021 Africa Business Forum held virtually on the sidelines of the 34th Ordinary Session of the African Union Assembly of Heads of State and Government. President Kenyatta said Kenya had made progress in the delivery of public services digitally, adding that the country is hinging on technology to transform its economy. Currently, the Kenya government has over 200 digitized services offered through Huduma centers countrywide, as well as an online self-service e-citizen platform. President Kenyatta has further pointed out that 40% of private enterprises in Kenya are engaged in e-commerce, and 70% of all e-commerce payments in the country are settled through various mobile money payment platforms.
And in the face of containment measures necessitated by the pandemic, technology has kept governments as well as businesses and private individuals running and enabled international cooperation and engagement as well. And we are all been able to do this very much in a very sustainable manner.
And Kenya Airways is targeting the upcoming peak flower season by increasing its cargo capacity through the conversion of one of its Boeing 787 Dreamliners. The national carrier adapted the passenger aircraft for cargo, effectively increasing the airline's cargo capacity by 40%.
This is the latest entrant into Kenya Airways cargo business, a former passenger plane retrofitted for cargo as part of the airline strategy to tap into the growing cargo business. It is also in response to the depressed demand on the passenger side and the growing demand for air cargo in Kenya and across the continent. The repurposing included cabin modifications undertaken through December 2020 by the KQ team in close collaboration with Avianor, an aerospace player. The repurposing has served to extend the Dreamliner's freight carrying capacity from 30 to 56 tons. By targeting fresh produce exporters, the airline says this will help in creation of jobs, boosting the economy and bringing in more foreign exchange. On Monday, the repurposed airline will have cargo that will largely feature cut flowers as exporters move to beat Sunday's Valentine's Day deadline for deliveries. Alana Oko, Channel 1 Business.
Well, it's time for us to play now, and long hitting Dismas Indiza carried a round of 6 under par 65 to shoot to a 4-shot lead on day 2 of the 8th leg of the 2021 Safari Tour at the par 71 Muthaiga Golf Club. The Muthaiga round saw 43 pros miss the cut that was set at 6 over par 148. Some of the top names that did not make the cut are Rizwan Charania, Jacob Okello, and Ugandan Philip Kasozi.
Indiza tops the leaderboard going into the morning rounds on 5 under par 137 after an opening day round of 1 over par 72. Zimbabwean Rob Sonchinhoy had a second round of 4 under par 67 for a total of 2 under par 140 for joint second, alongside Zambian Dane Moore, who had a round of 1 under par 70. Moore said that he is happy with the quality of competition at Muthaiga.
For me, I'm kind of trying to get away from thinking of scores so much. Trying to focus more on my process and stuff like that. And I've done that the last few, there's a mini tour in South Africa that we've been playing. I've done that the last few events and it's turned out pretty well. So I'm happy with that. I'm not really thinking about score too much. I'm just trying to improve my game, worry about my stuff, at the end of the day.
Anthony Juma, Chege John Wangai and Mohamed Irata joined 4th on 1 under par 140. Wangai was happy with how the Muthaiga course played out.
I was putting well today. Is that the greens are rolling well. Therefore, if you have a good stroke, if you're putting well, you're able to hold in a few putts. But besides that, I was also able to stay on regulation a lot. Out of the 18 holes, I've hit 15 greens on regulation. So that one has made me at least save all the putts that I needed to save. The bottom line is I played well and the course is playing well.
Going into day 3, 21 golfers, including amateur Jay Santu, will be battling for the top prize over 150,000 shillings.
Now, Atlas Lions of Morocco trounced the Eagles of Mali 2-0 to retain the African Nation Championship title in a closely contested match at the Hamoud Ahidojin Stadium in Yaoundé. And Captain Ayub El Kabi scored the crucial goals for the North Africans.
From the terraces of the stadium, Omar Namsawi.